Welcome back, everyone, to our day 2 on the introduction to data science. I'll just quickly recap what we did last time. Yesterday, we talked about what is data science. We realized that it is made up of multiple components. There's a component for data wrangling, creating data the way machine learning algorithms would like to see it. And that's a pretty long and messy journey. There's a lot of engineers spend their entire life doing that. Then we have data visualization and data analysis. It is called exploratory data analysis. Part of it is a statistical analysis of the data. Part of it is the visualization of the data. We saw the importance of visualizing data. Very quickly, I'll go through. Yesterday, we looked at the Escombe's quartet, and we saw why visualization is of paramount importance, because there's a lot that can be missed from a pure statistical investigation of the data. Next thing we did is we also said that this field, visualizations, have huge impact. Florence Nightingale founded the entire field of modern nursing by convincing Queen Elizabeth, I believe, that people die in the battlefields predominantly not from battle wounds, but from unhygienic conditions when they're sick or when they're wounded. Right? And that was the famous 2 roses diagram. We will, today, we have given you the bundle of code that you should download. There'll be a practical aspect that we'll get into pretty soon. And as we get into that, you'll get all of this code. I won't cover the data visualization code. I'll leave it to you. Now, I've also given notebooks for NumPy. Right? Those of you for whom Python, this is their first interaction with this field, may want to read through this very quick introduction to NumPy. And there's an introduction to Matplotlib. Many of you came to the data wrangling course, if you did, in which we spent 3-4 days quite literally going over this and building it up slowly. Those videos are there in our YouTube channel, and you can go back and look at those videos. I have included it as a refresher, because some of you obviously have taken that course, some of you haven't. Those of you who haven't might benefit from these Jupyter notebooks. And the code is pretty much self-explanatory. We have put a lot of text here to explain what it is that we are doing. Then, likewise, there is a library called Pandas. So NumPy is numerical arrays. Like machine learning is all about vectors and matrices and tensors, high-dimensional matrices that are called tensors. To a large extent, it's number crunching. And so arrays are very important. The first library that brought high performance arrays into Python was NumPy. Pandas is a project that has built upon NumPy, and now it's also including something called PyArrow. Right? This is sort of a bit of technical detail, but there's a movement there. And it gives you the picture, what you would think of as a spreadsheet. It gives you a view of data as a spreadsheet with columns and rows, and makes it easy to manipulate data. The word that people use in the data science community for that spreadsheet is data frame. So many frameworks, R and Pandas and Spark and Flink, and all of them will talk about data frames or data sets. Right? Or by that they mean sort of very powerful. Just think of a spreadsheet on steroids. Something that comes with a tremendous ability to manipulate rectangular data sets, right? Rows and columns data sets. That's a Pandas library. Once again, I'm giving you these notebooks. Use this to go through it and avail yourself of this. Again, those of you who registered for the data wrangling course, you have already gotten this. We will start today with a little bit understanding of the data and quickly move on to our core topic, which is regression. Now, the way today's session will progress is we will learn a little and then we'll do a little. Does that look reasonable, guys? But before I continue, is there anybody who has not followed the instructions for UV from yesterday and set up the environment? You haven't done that, okay. So then follow along. What you want to do is, here's what we want to do. First things first, go to this course, go into this. If you click on this, you will have a zip file, a tar zip file that will come, an archive file that will get downloaded automatically. And unzip it or unarchive it, uncompress it in some location. When you uncompress it, what you will notice is you will end up with a directory that is called Spring 2025 Data Science. I'll just highlight it on my this. Do you see where my mouse is? It will unzip into this directory. Now comes the question, and I'll give a very quick way of working through this because it will be faster than perhaps you may want. But let's try with that and see if it works. If you go back to there, then what happens is you need to do this. You need to go and install something called UV on your machine. We have given those basic setup instructions, of course, inside this project. When you unzip it, it is there. But of course, you won't be able to make head and tail out of it. You can actually. What I would suggest is, if you have Jupyter Notebook, then you can enter that project. But here's the instruction. It's very, very simple. By the way, if you have Conda, if you have been using Anaconda or Conda on your machines, the first thing that we ask you to do is just deactivate it. Like what happens is when you install Conda, it goes and modifies your bash shell or your Z shell. And by default, when you open a terminal, it puts you into a virtual environment, a base virtual environment. Our first recommendation is to, deactivate Conda. My better recommendation, if you're just starting out on Python and so forth, just don't use Conda. There are too many licensing issues with Anaconda. You can't use it in an enterprise. There's some things, and plus, frankly, UV is the new kid on the block. Right? You should use that. UV is supposed to supersede Conda, pip, pipex, poetry, just about everything. So just deactivate it, and if you can afford to, altogether you can get rid of it from your machine. But the only line that you need to run on your machine is this. Go to your shell, your Linux or your Mac shell, and run this command. I will deliberately put it in big fonts, and I'll wait a minute for those of you who want to. You had a question?
Yeah, this page, how do I get?
No, I'll show you. You can't get to it until you have UV installed. Right? So first thing you do is, it's a bit of a circular situation. Right? So please install UV. This one line will install UV for you. I will give 1 minute for you to stare at it and do it on your machine. UV is a very quick install.
You need to do it only once.
Only once. And you might need super user privilege, sudo privilege, or whatever. Now, for those of you who have Windows, what do you do? What you do is you go into Windows, you install Windows Subsystem for Linux version 2, like WSL 2. That will take you a little bit of time. It's just 2 or 3 commands. You can ask ChatGPT to give you those commands, very simple commands. Maybe we should have added it here. And after that, install Ubuntu from the Microsoft Store. It will be a version of Ubuntu compatible with Windows. And then you can run Ubuntu, which is Linux, on your Windows machine. And once you run Ubuntu on your machine, then you can always get into a shell and repeat this command. But the bottom line is you need a Unix-like shell, right? A Unix shell somehow. And once you have a Unix shell, you're doing just fine. This one command will install this UV on your machine. Once you have UV installed on your machine, what do we do then? What you do is you enter this project, the project that you just unzipped. Are we here?
Go to the directory.
Yeah, just go to the directory. Yeah. And the first thing you would do is you would say UV sync. And just as a good practice, it's good to say upgrade, though it's not necessary. You can say this, UV sync.
Oh, one word, one letter. UV sync is one word.
UV is one word, space sync, space upgrade. Please repeat this. Now, I'll explain what it does. What you have downloaded is a project. That project needs to create a virtual environment dedicated to itself. That is the UV philosophy, that every project should have its own private virtual environment so that it doesn't get affected by other projects on your machine. So think of it, just as we think of VMs or Dockers, think of it as Python's version of a Docker container. It's very lightweight. It just creates a very contained, tiny environment. And you're safe within the environment. You don't screw up other people's projects, or you don't screw up other of your projects. and other things don't screw you up, right? And what I recommend, and I always do, is I actually don't install Python on the machine directly, whether it's Linux or Windows, Linux or Mac. This is a Mac. I don't install Python. Instead, what I do, yeah, go ahead.
Where can download the
Where can we? I'll come back to it in a moment. So what I usually do is just have UV. UV, if it doesn't find, what it will do is when you do UV sync, this command will automatically download the right version of Python for you. Are we together? So what it means is, look at this in this project. So this is how you declare projects. This project declares that it needs Python at least 312 or greater. So it is going to download that particular version of Python for you. And when you do that, if you look into your system, in this directory now you will see something called .v and virtual environment, .venv. Do you see that, guys? Are you guys running it? Okay, so while I'm waiting for you, let me answer your question. How do you get this? What you do is you go to the course portal, and in the course portal, at the very top under activities, do you see this? Python project codebase for regression. So guys, we need to have a balance of keep moving fast, but at the same time, I want to make sure all of you get to at least this baseline level. Then we'll move fast, right? And it's an open-ended session today. Frankly, I do want to teach all of regression, the labs that I brought, and be prepared for the long haul. There'll be a lot of theory, there'll be a lot of practical labs, coding. We'll do practical and useful tools we'll learn. So can we assume that at this stage, all of you have run UV sync? If you have run UV sync, you're in good shape. I would recommend that you give this magic mantra, source.venv, then activate. What it means is you're activating this particular virtual environment, source.venv, bin activate. That happens to be an executable file in that directory, in the .venv bin directory. This is Unix's way of saying, let's run that. And when you do that, so keep your eyes here where it says my name, Asif Kumar at Soliton, you'll see something interesting happen. I'm about to hit enter. And when I do, you notice this thing, guys? The name of your virtual environment now shows up on the extreme left of your shell. When this happens, that's when you know that you're making pretty good progress. Now, what will you do? You want to see the portal that I have. It is quite easy. You will just say mkdocs serve. This is a command that soon will become one of your favorite commands because it takes your project. You must have seen that open source projects have very admirable websites for themselves, isn't it? With lots of read the docs and things like that. Fancy documentations, images, etc., etc. This is quite literally that. It will create a nice, good website of all your stuff, all your Jupyter notebooks and so on and so forth, and markdown files. So the tradition in the Python world, especially for AI, is to write a lot of the documentation, and most of it, either as markdown or as Jupyter notebooks. So I will just start this. So I won't hit enter because in my case it's running. Please go and run this, mkdocs. Are we all there? Is it running for you guys? Excellent. Now we have baselined. We should all be fine. Now, what is it doing? Let me give you an idea. The tradition in this way of doing projects is you have, let me just clear the screen. If you go look at the directory, inside there is a docs directory. Inside the docs directory, you notice that if you observe carefully, there is an index.md, index.markdown, and it's very common in this field to write your root documentation as markdown rather than HTML. So you can see that I have written very simple markdown here. My team has written rather. And this markdown is what shows up. If you look at this, there is an image here, then there's an introduction here. Let's go and see where was it. Do you see all of this text, guys? Welcome to intuitive introduction, etc., etc. And the same text, and this is just giving you a quick introduction of how people do projects in our field. And you can see side by side that it's the same text that is here is being reflected here. One of the nice things about Markdown mkdocs serve is you could be making changes here and it should quickly reflect here, right? So for example, if you were to go and say correlation is one of the topics we'll talk about Here we go. And this is classification. After a little while, mkdocs will pick it up and it will go and make the necessary changes on this side here. Right? With some luck, it will do that. At this moment, my Sublime text is not in the best of moods. So this is it. And so inside the doc, if I have Jupyter notebooks, that is where I usually put the Jupyter notebooks. So if you notice, here are the notebooks. All of your, do you see these files, guys? These Jupyter notebook files? If you're familiar with Jupyter notebook, you'll know what I mean. All of these files are there, and it is these files that is showing up as the website. So this is how I organize projects. You may have your own convention, but this is one convention. Right? So I will put it on the right-hand side, this thing, and we'll make progress. So let's go through the, guys, have we reached this far? Yeah.
The mkdocs, sir.
Yeah.
How long does it take? I think for me it is.
It takes a very long time. This is a big project.
Oh.
And it takes longer time if you have an older laptop.
Stuck at like cleaning site directly.
Yeah. The reason for that is, guys, look at the number of the amount of code I've given you. You're looking at close to 26 or 27 Jupyter notebooks. Yeah, your question.
So this notebook, how can I get access to this? Like I'm not getting it in the portal.
Yes, in the course portal, you go to the course portal and you go to My Courses. Do you see this course called Spring 2025 Introduction to Data Science? Are you inside there? If you are inside there, the very first thing, look here. Look where my mouse is spinning. See where my mouse is dancing.
Okay. So that is there. So that is like to download the project, right?
That is right. That's all.
So the so notebook is showing and
it is all inside that entire file. So okay, let me repeat the process. You download that file, you unzip the file, it becomes this directory, right? In this case, Spring. It becomes, you notice that there is a directory called Spring 2025. It becomes that.
Yeah.
Has it become that in your case?
Yeah.
Yes. You have UV installed?
Yeah.
Yes. So all you do is, again, you would go into that and all you have to do is do UV sync upgrade. That is it.
Yeah.
That is step number one. Upgrade, by the way, is just a best practice. I always do it even when I don't need it. So when you do that, it's a very rapid process. UV is very fast. It will set up your whole virtual environment and everything for that project. Are we there? Mm-hmm. After that, you need to activate the virtual environment. So for that, you will give this command, source.vnv activate. Once you have done that, finally, you would give the command mkdocs serve. That will bring up the entire site. Now your question, where are the notebooks? It is in the docs notebook. Look, these are all Jupyter notebooks. You see that, right? That's it. Now, did you get it? Yeah.
Yes, so just wanted to know that the mkdocs, right? The command actually looks like it starts a web server which hosts the.
Absolutely. And click on that URL.
There's a URL that prints on the
at the end, at the very end. And all you have to do, so when you do mkdocs, it will create an entire site. And you can see that if you look at your directory, you will see a directory called in your root project's root, you will see a directory called site. Do you see this site directory? And this site directory will have your notebooks and project guide and all of that, right? So for example, if you go to project guide, this, and you will notice that it has all sorts of things. Lab notes will have basic setup, all directory of things, and it would have created further subdirectories, and finally there will be HTML sitting there. So all it is doing is it's firing up a web server to open that directory. That is what happened. So guys, are we all there?
Hey, Asif, I'm seeing a problem where it says there's a socket bind error and it says address already in use.
It means that you are already running it on some other shell, or you're running something on that shell. It's port 8000. You must be running at port 8000 on your machine. Whichever it is that you're running, you need to stop it.
Okay.
So now we can move forward. Guys, this baseline is important. Let's make sure that all of you achieve this baseline. Can we assume that we are all here?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else? I should not wait. Okay, guys. So
Mac is screwed up and I'm unable to connect to a server.
which server are you trying to connect to? Oh, you mean the support vector server? No, this thing best do on your Mac itself. But okay, we'll help you separately, right? So, guys, today's topic is basically two things I would like to talk. Yesterday we talked about data visualization a little bit, its importance, and so forth. Today, I want to introduce you to actual analysis. We didn't talk about the statistical analysis of data. We'll do it for a short amount of time, and then we'll move to regression, right? So follow along with me. Now, I apologize that I have to take some shortcuts. So I will assume that you attended either the data wrangling course or you have some familiarity with NumPy, Pandas, and Matplotlib. How many of you don't?
I don't.
Okay, may I suggest that you watch our data wrangling videos? So I'll give you a very simple way of looking at it. NumPy gives Python high performance arrays, multidimensional arrays. Pandas is on top of it. It gives you the notion of a data frame, a spreadsheet manipulation. And Matplotlib is pretty much the default data visualization library for Python. All of these are very easy learning curves. Like NumPy has a learning curve of half an hour. Pandas, I mean, enough. It doesn't mean that you become an expert at NumPy. NumPy has 200 functions or something. But for you to become useful and hit the ground running, you need half an hour. Pandas, again, within half an hour, you'll hit the ground running. Matplotlib, again, half an hour. So in an hour and a half, you will learn enough of the basics. Now, may I suggest that these Jupyter notebooks that I have put here are pretty good ways to learn this topic. You can learn NumPy. And by the way, how many of you would like me to start from because it will make our session very long tonight, but I'm totally willing to do that. How many of you would like me to start straight by giving a tour of NumPy, then of Pandas, then of Matplotlib? So guys, those of you who did not raise the hand, I think I'll just go ahead and explain NumPy because we are building the foundations. I'll do this. May I excuse you for about 40 minutes? Come back in 40 minutes if you know this very well. Or, it can be pretty annoying to go through the basics. But if you would like to have a refresher and enjoy it, then please stay back. I'll go through the explanations.